What if your failures with English aren't the problem, but your expectations of progress actually are? That question is what today's poem is about. It's about how learning often looks messier and much slower than we expect, and much slower than we would actually like. Hi, I'm Sarah from Free Your English, where I help learners turn their reading into real-world fluency. Today we're going to read a poem called Tiny Wisdom. I wrote the poem after watching my son learn to walk. First, we'll read the poem together, we'll talk about the meaning behind it, and then we'll go through and we'll look at the useful vocabulary, and also I'll suggest some opportunities for speaking practice. So here we are, the poem Tiny Wisdom by me. We are using a dyslexia-friendly font and background. I try to do that for every video, but often forget. It's roughly around about B2 text, so roughly an intermediate level. But if you are above or below that level, it can still be really useful for you. Before we jump into the poem, I want to offer a quick speaking practice, and I really encourage you to actually give it a go. Pause the video and speak out loud. It's so good for your English to get that speaking practice in. So the pre-reading question, there's actually two of them. The first one, what does that title suggest to you? The title being Tiny Wisdom. What does it make you think about? Pause the video, give it a go. So tiny means small, right? So it suggests something small or easy to miss. In terms of tiny wisdom, well, that could suggest learning from ordinary, small, everyday moments. One more speaking practice, and then we're going to go into reading the poem. You have to walk before you can run. What do you think it means? Explain it as clearly as you can and give an example of when you might use it. Again, pause the video and speak out loud your answer. Well, you have to walk before you can run means you must learn the basic steps of something before you become very good at it. It reminds us that learning takes time and that it's normal to be slow at the beginning. So we use this phrase when we want to offer comfort and support to somebody who's frustrated that they're not making enough progress. So imagine if your friend had just started learning piano and they were saying, I'm so frustrated that I can't play my favorite song. You might say to them, well, you have to walk before you can run. You need to learn where your hands go. You need to learn how to read music. You need to practice with scales and just basic notes before you can play a song. And so you would encourage them by reminding them that learning something to a level of high mastery has many steps to it, and that it's okay that they are where they are. Okay, here's the poem. They say in life, you have to walk before you can run. What we don't always acknowledge is that actually you have to give up the comfort of being safely on your back to flail around, mostly face down, before you can get your arms in place amidst much grunting, before, with a bit of help, you can push yourself into a crawl, before you can fall down repeatedly, trying to stand up, before grasping at nearby helping hands you grudgingly choose. The frustrating slowness of one wobbly step after the other over the crawling that was much faster and much more fun before you can walk, before you can run. Which isn't to say that life is all frustration and struggle, but rather a reminder that look at all those folks running, shouldn't I be with them by now? Doesn't help us when we're still flailing around on our back or are face down in the thick of it. Sometimes, if not always, we need more time and more steps than we realize to reach our ultimate goal. And along the way, it would be nice to remember it's okay to continue to fail. It's okay to continue to try. Okay, that was the poem. I'm going to offer you a post-reading speaking practice with these questions. What was the poem about? What did it make you think of? If you're not sure, feel free to go back, rewind, and listen to the poem again, and then give it a go. So pause the video, give it a try. The poem is about learning and progress. It compares learning in life to a baby learning to walk in stages, showing that going slowly, making mistakes, and even going backwards are a normal part of learning. It also reminds us not to compare ourselves to others. If your explanation was different, that's absolutely fine. What matters is that you spoke. So this is just my interpretation of my writing. This is what I was thinking about and going through when I wrote this. You might have a different reaction to it. Tell me in the comments if it reminded you of something else, or if there were parts that were tricky and that you weren't sure of. Okay, we're going to go through the poem again, reading it again, and I'll stop and talk about different sections and also explain the vocabulary as I go. They say in life you have to walk before you can run. What we don't always acknowledge is that actually you have to give up the comfort of being safely on your back to flail around, mostly face down. Okay, to flail around means to move erratically, kind of uncomfortable, jerky, wild movements. So if you slipped on ice, you would flail around. You would have very rapid, kind of wild movements. So this section is saying that actually the first step of learning to walk is not even crawling. It's first deciding that you'll get off your back as a baby and you will start to try to move, even if you have to move awkwardly, even if you have to flail around. And that most of your time will be face down, so literally with your face kind of smushed into the carpet. So you'll have to flail around before you can get your arms in place amidst, that means with or in the middle of, much grunting. A grunt is a sound that indicates a lot of force and a lot of effort has been made. If you lifted a big box up, you might make a noise that indicates, oh, this is heavy. So that noise, that would be a grunt. So because it's difficult, you're putting in effort, you might be grunting, making noises that indicate effort. So amidst much grunting, before with a bit of help, you can push yourself into a crawl. You can see the picture of the baby indicating crawling. Before you can fall down repeatedly, trying to stand up, before grasping, so reaching out for and taking hold of. To grasp means to take hold. Grasping at nearby helping hands, you grudgingly choose. To grudgingly do something means to do something even though you don't want to. So when babies are learning to walk, they stand up and they want to do everything themselves. So you offer, well, my son did anyway, I would offer my hand to him and he would grasp it, but almost with an attitude of like, oh, guess I need the help. So grudgingly, like, I don't really want to choose to hold on to you. He liked to hold on to sides of the sofa or, explore on his own. So he was taking my hand grudgingly. So he's grudgingly choosing the frustrating slowness of one wobbly step after the other. To wobble means to move from side to side unevenly, without stability. So wobble is to move from side to side. So a wobbly step is when you are shaking as you move. You are moving in a wobbly way from side to side. So you choose one wobbly step after the other over the crawling that was much faster and much more fun before you can walk, before you can run. So this is the part that I was really thinking about learning. Like, to go to the next level, you often have to let go of the things that you're comfortable with, that you can do quickly and easily, and that because they're something that you've mastered, feel a little bit more fun. The things that get you to the B1 level are maybe not the things that get you to the B2 level. And it can feel a little bit painful to let go of maybe learning grammar and to start doing more speaking, because learning grammar was something that you were good at. And so it was easier and felt that you could do it, felt more fun because you could do it quickly. So in the same way, as you're learning as a baby, you have to let go of the things that are easy to take on the next task and the steps. Which isn't to say that life is all frustration and struggle, but rather a reminder that look at those folks running, shouldn't I be with them by now? So we often compare ourselves. I know I do. And this is saying, how crazy would it be if a baby was looking at people running and was beating themselves up? To beat yourself up means to be hard on yourself. They're not doing that, babies. They're just trying things and giving it a go. But as adults, we often kind of berate, criticize ourselves in the middle of doing something. And that doesn't help us when we're still flailing around on our back or our face down in the thick of it. If you're in the thick of it, that means that you are in the most difficult part. So you might say, I'm in the thick of my divorce right now. It's a terrible time. Everything's the worst that it possibly can be. We're arguing about property and children, and we're really in the worst part. We're in the thick of it. I'm not in a divorce, but that's an example. So a situation where something is bad, but this is the worst part of it. You're in the really tricky part. Everything's difficult, in the thick of it. So comparing yourself to other people when you're struggling in the most difficult part of learning, when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't help. Sometimes, if not always, we need more time and more steps than we realize to reach our ultimate goal. And along the way, it would be nice to remember it's okay to continue to fail. It's okay to continue to try. Okay, so that's my poem about my son walking. I'm going to tell you my kind of insights that came as I wrote it, but I would love, as always, to hear yours. I wrote this poem when I was a fairly new mother, watching my little boy learn how to walk. Before I imagined what it was like to be a mother, I really thought that babies just kind of started crawling and then pulled themselves up and tried walking. But it was fascinating to see the actual reality that it's not like that. There were many, many more stages than I had imagined in the whole process. I watched him learning to lie on his stomach and then trying to hold his head up, and then he started crawling, and then he was crawling backwards at first and then forwards, and it was just interesting to watch him notice that he could move but that he wasn't going where he wanted to. And he finally figured out how to crawl forward really fast, and then he was trying to stand up. That was frustrating, and it just took a lot of attempts before he was successful in finally walking. And I was thinking about that at the time, and I thought about a really famous coach who had talked about this topic as an example of learning. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, how many times would you let your healthy child try to walk before you said, hey kid, this walking business is not for you? There wouldn't be a number, would there? You'd just keep letting them try until they walked. And that coach talking about that made me really reflect upon the fact that the process of walking is like the process of learning. There's so many steps to it, so many phases, and so many different things that you need to master. It's just not an immediate, instant process of learning one thing and being immediately successful. And it made me realize that sometimes as adults, we write ourselves off too quickly. We try something and it doesn't work, and then we make that mean that we're never going to be successful, rather than giving ourselves an opportunity to just enjoy the learning process. Because most of the process of learning to walk was something that was really fun for both my son and for me watching him. And the process of learning can be like that if you allow yourself the grace to recognize that there are going to be quite a few steps and you have to master each one before you move on. And sometimes you're going to regress and move back, and it's all part of the fun, the process. So allowing ourselves to fail forward, that's what this poem is about, for me anyway.